Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Korea Society. My name is Luz Lanzat. I'm the Program Officer of Education here, and I'm so happy to have you all here for Remapping Identity Politics in K-pop with our wonderful panel. I've been a fan of K-pop for 18 years, and I've always struggled to articulate what it is about K-pop that drew me, and so I'm so interested in hearing what these ladies have to say about identity politics, cultural authenticity, and originality. I'd like to introduce our panel. Maud Lavin is a professor of visual and critical studies and art history, theory, and criticism at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. Bora Kim is an interdisciplinary artist and sociologist from Seoul, South Korea. Samantha Shao is a curator, writer from Taipei who focuses on cultural translation and post-colonialism. And Karin Kuroda is a research consultant, writer, and creative collaborator from New York City who focuses on the intersectional narratives of minority politics. So we're so excited to have these ladies here and excited to have you here at the Korea Society. Please make sure you fill out our feedback form so we can improve our programs for the future, and visit our website, koreasociety.org, to learn how you can support us through membership. Please give our panel a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, I want to introduce this project and EXP, and I made it in 4 minutes, so it's gonna be okay. Can you play the video, Peter? Yeah. EXP is the first and only K-pop boy band in New York, and none of them are Korean. I decided to make a K-pop boy band in 2014 when I was in my MFA program at Columbia University. At that point, there were 2 very clear elements in my head. Somehow it had to be a K-pop band, even though I was in New York, and I wanted to film the process of making the band. I soon realized I couldn't do it by myself and got Samantha Shao and Karin Kuroda on board. The first step was to audition the members.
EXP 멤버 선발을 위한 오디션은 무려 150대 1의 경쟁률을 기록했다고 하는데요. 외국인만으로 K-pop 그룹을 만든 이유가 뭘까요?
After finalizing the members, we had to begin building their image. It was necessary for us to prove that we are a K-pop band visually. And that included the way the members perform or act in front of the camera. And then we recorded an original single.
언제나 긴장되는 순간인데요. EXP의 이번 노래는 가사 대부분이 한국어.
And we released it on the opening day of the MFA thesis exhibition. Right before the opening day, we became viral in the K-pop community. And that led us to have subsequent media attention.
6 members who are debuting as a K-pop group. They are called the first New York City K-pop group, and they are actually backed by a company. How the hell can you be a K-pop group when you don't have the K in it? Korean. Now,
一个仿韩流的男孩团体，而且他们成员前清一色都是西方人哦。他们利用这
Together they form EXP. So let's meet the boys now.
안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. We are EXP.
Now, we're trying to go to Korea and break into the Korean entertainment industry. So the boys are concentrating on learning Korean. Yes, so that was a brief introduction of what we've been doing for a year and a half. And now all 4 of us will present a short text But before that,
So today we can see a lot of like familiar faces, but also some new faces. So like if you guys wondering, this is an ongoing project, and for today's talk, all of us were rather to have this more like a conversation rather than like a one-way lecture. So later, if you guys have any questions, no question is stupid. Like please ask us, and like feedback is really welcome. Yeah.
And we want to just say thank you so much to Maud Lavin. She flew here from Chicago to participate in the conversation revolving around politics and K-pop. Thank you for inviting me.
yeah. And one disclaimer: we three of us, we just wrote an essay for the Journal of the American Studies. So this talk, like this brief 2-minute talk, will be loosely based on that. So I'll start with the inception of the project. This project began as a sociological inquiry of mine around the global success of K-pop. Although K-pop has become something that represents contemporary Korea, but it does not have anything traditionally Korean in it, especially music itself. And in fact, it is heavily influenced by American pop or American pop through Japan. And this aligned with my ongoing questioning on how do I deal with the issues of being foreign to my own traditional culture, or rather something that was handed to me as traditionally, authentically Korean. K-pop, unlike its obvious national branding, K-pop, demonstrates very well the state of ambiguousness where it's hard to distinguish what is mine and what is foreign, or what is copy and what is original. Modern history of the East was a process of compulsive copying in order to develop an identity using the language of the West, as Joanne Jung puts it. And situating Korean wave and K-pop in this context is important because it really was and is a drastic change in the cultural flow. And in fact, the last few decades can be described as, in Koichi Iabuchi's word, non-Euro-American part of the world expressing their own specificity in a format developed by American media culture, deviating from the complete dominance of American pop culture. So I wanted to talk about the issues of cultural appropriation within this framework when I started the project. The rapid transition from a post-colonial state to a dominant culture exporter has given a totally new meaning to using the culture of the other for Korea. Another aspect of this project has a lot to do with why EXP is a boy band, not a girl group. Because I think K-pop boy band represents a new type of masculinity that has significance in Korean society as well as in global media. I'm very interested in K-pop fandom, especially in the way they consume their oppas, for example, in the form of fan fiction, etc. In addition, today, I want to extend this topic of sexuality to transnational viewing and how misreading can have a generative power to overcome the stagnant discourse around cultural appropriation. This is connected to how EXP has displacement as a concept and will forever be displaced wherever it goes, and how it can bring all sorts of different viewpoints into the conversation. Thank you.
So my part will be more related to the structure of the project and like the format, how we're presenting the project. And I will start explaining a little bit my background. So I started my role and I'm making a boy band more as a project manager. And as the project developed, I shift my position to focus on communication and marketing, combining my interest of cultural translation and institutional theory of art. I have a few things I would like to share with you today. Firstly, let me provide my observation as a Taiwanese K-pop consumer. From a nationalist point of view, Taiwanese sees Korean as rival. For Taiwan, Korea is the same small-town girl that got famous first. However, when it comes to pop culture in general, nationalism doesn't affect Taiwan's admiration towards Korea. Personally, I first got into K-pop and K-drama when I was a senior in college. I'm not the most devoted and loyal K-pop fan, but whenever I wanted to fall back into the deepest black hole of fandom, K-pop and K-drama never let me down. Entering this project was the first time I could express my eternal confusion of enjoying Korean culture, which brings us to the next point. I have asked myself this question many, many times throughout the process. What does it mean to cross the boundary between fine art and pop culture? I believe many artists are like us, who are bored of the status quo of contemporary art. Yet, unlike us, they don't have the luxury to explore their subject like we do. I jokingly said a while ago, the best way to research your subject is to be your subject. Fandom shouldn't be romanticized or exoticized by artists and academics. I came across the quote some other day. There are, in fact, no fans. There are only ways of seeing people as fans, which is a cliche but very true. In this project, we place ourselves in the entertainment industry because we need to be a part of our subject, not objectifying our subject, aka seeing them as the other. I see K-pop as a cultural phenomenon we could criticize, but in the same time, I enjoy it immensely. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karin Kuroda, and I'm the Director of Editorial Content of I'm Making Boy Band. I'm just going to give a short story about how I got addicted to K-pop and why it resonates with me for the project. Upon viewing K-pop for the first time, in my case, a music video, Fire, by 2NE1, a 4-member female idol group, I was instantly hooked and immediately, at any opportunity, trying to get other people addicted like me. Though I knew at the time that this was an inherent act of seeking Western validation. Like us, we're cool. Everything you thought about Asia is wrong. In my self-reflexivity, I knew seeking this validation wasn't necessarily good, but in my previous years of being a fangirl, always towards white, straight male musicians, this was my first opportunity to idolize Asian women existing outside the realm of American media's version of Asian imagery, that which materializes simply as exoticization and through caricatures. In addition, 2NE1 represented at the time a different genre of female idol group, embodying ideals such as strong, cool, and quirky, whereas the typical female K-pop idol group embodied such ideals as feminine, fragile, and polite, traits which I am familiar with as they are expected of me within Japanese society. 2NE1's unique and contrasting presentation of gender cultivated a newfound Asian pride within me. I also recognize that their image is conveyed as edgy through choreography and fashion through the appropriation of hip-hop styles. However, with regard to 2NE1's style and image, it is interesting to note that my engagement with it was perhaps not possible without their use of appropriation. It is on this note that I cite and take refuge in Maud's writings, which we will discuss in a moment. Quote, particularly for women who can feel marginalized, a desire to identify with an other can transcend Orientalism and move toward an affective sense of belonging to an imaginary cosmopolitan culture that seems somehow more fair, or at least more open to new possibilities, end quote. I view this sensibility as a positive response to the dilemma of viewing cultural appropriation as simply problematic, which tends to be dichotomous and ineffective. It is important to recognize the complexity and effect of culturally appropriated images as perhaps more than just bad or good, but rather a nuanced example of the flux of cultural flows within the transnational media consumption. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maud Lavin, and this is just a 5-minute talk. I am very interested in how Bora Kim, Karin Kuroda, and Samantha Shao, through their EXP project and their purposeful and astute remixing of commonly used codes in the export and consumption of K-pop, how this is highlighting and questioning some important issues in gender and transnational viewing. To introduce myself, I'm a professor at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and have published books and articles on issues of gender, sexualities, and cultures. In recent years, I've been particularly interested in the internet circulation of cultural productions from East Asia, among East Asian countries, and then also focusing on US reception. Of course, K-pop has a global impact, but I'm looking at just some of these circuits. I am Anglo-Ashkenazi, baby boomer, cis woman who self-defines as hetero from a small town in the Midwest, Canton, Ohio, who has lived her adult life in New York City and Chicago. And I fell in love, as so many have, in the late 2000s with K-dramas. For example, Coffee Prince, 2007, now a classic. How many people have seen some of Coffee Prince? First shop of Coffee Prince. Easy to get streaming, Viki.com and so forth. Okay, so it has, a very familiar plot of gender confusion, seemingly at first boys' love, when the coffee heir, Hangul, correct me my pronunciation if it's wrong, please, falls for the tomboy waiter, Unchan, who works for him. She's a woman, but is disguised as a man. He is a man. This was groundbreaking at the time in that it was the first mainstream Korean TV show to deal with a seemingly gay plot. But I got interested in the pleasures and confusions of the tomboy hetero woman and how these were portrayed. So I got to interview a number of viewers in Korea and the US, and also had the chance to interview the director, Lee Yeon-jung. And I published an article on these hetero-feminine pleasures of public boyish play and private sexual assertiveness that you can see in Coffee Prince. Plus, it's funny. You should really look at it. And also how the slow-building typical K-drama courtship played for viewers outside of Korea. I published in the Yonsei University Cultural Studies Journal Situations, which brings me to EXP based on this set of interests as reflected by this one example. So I have really 3 questions I want to raise here for discussion in addition to the great questions already posed about EXP. 1. What does this project, its creation, it's being directed by these 3 talented women from Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, respectively, and based by them in New York City, what does it tell us and provoke us to wonder about transnational viewing and desires, particularly women's desires? And that's because I'm interested in women's desires, okay? It's not restricted to that, but I mean, this is a focus that I would be interested in interrogating with you. Here I mean a variety and range of women's desires such as hetero, queer, queerly hetero, desires from looking within or across racialized categories, and so on. How do their casting choices, in fact, urge us to reflect on the matrix of intersectional identities of different viewers and the intersectional identity that might inform our own individual cultural consumption and production? Okay, so 1 is transnational viewing and desires. 2 can continue from that and looking at the vast matrix of hetero desires, not excluding any desires by people who self-define as other than hetero. But I have this general idea, and I'm even teaching a grad seminar at SASC now called Heterosexuality is Plural, that there's some aspects of heterosexuality that are like over-determined in mass culture, like how many Cinderella plots of movies produced in Hollywood or TV shows like K-dramas, can we watch? So many Cinderella stories, right? And then there's a lot of other parts of hetero desires or hetero-feminine desires that are just not talked about enough, not articulated enough. Even though in different cultures say how divorce is common, the very, complex lives and redefining of homosociality friendships, the whole thing, which Sex and the City sort of caricatured, but, the lives of single women in different cultures. And just so we don't think this was like all done by Sex and the City, which certainly wasn't, and it's very different in different cultures, we think of just this late spring. In terms of Asia, we need to think of only the recent stir when Taiwan's new president, Tsai, the first woman president of Taiwan, was disparaged in the PRC publication Xinhua as being driven to politically excessive positions because she is single. And there was a huge, I'm glad to say, huge outcry about that, both in East Asia and somewhat echoing here. I mean, it's a semi-official organ, Xinhua, and saying, we got to watch out for that one because she's excessive. And the reason she's politically excessive is because she's single. Okay, so we've got like a whole, I'm now talking about the hetero-feminine marked matrix that is some ways overrepresented, sometimes not enough. What does that mean in what we might perceive about EXP? Also, I just want to say, side note, I don't care about people's private sex lives, okay? So when I'm talking about heterofemininity, I don't know what these guys' private lives are like, okay? I'm not trying to pry. I'm talking about the perceived representation that is enacted by the directors or the singers, however. Okay, which brings me to number 3, gendered roles in directing productions. How can we think of these roles so brilliantly embodied by Bora, Karin, and Sam? In EXP, the directors are all women. Together, they form a kind of management company. And in K-pop, such companies are male. And the direction is by men, and the profits of the 3 big mass media companies in Seoul it's not just male dominated, it's male, okay? And even in Coffee Prince, that director interview that I did, that director was the first female director to do a K-drama for one of the big 3. That was in 2007. Okay, so very, very gender divided. So here we have a gender flip, and I've been talking in somewhat categorical ways about the matrix of heterosexualities, but I want to say that among many things that this gender flip makes me think of is fandoms in not just with K-pop, not only with K-pop, but the general boys' love in Asia and / in the West, and the female-led online fan cultures, okay? And again, just talking about public representations, when the quote-unquote boys, actually men, are doing cute workshops and self-presenting as cute K-pop boy band, that is a huge category of East Asian cuteness and androgyny, mainly enacted by men, sometimes women, that can be read as a blurring of sexual and gender categories. And certainly is in the fan cultures of boys' love, fiction written about romances between 2 men. That is such an unusual mixture of hetero and gay codes. It's wonderfully mind-blowing. Okay, so in sum, most interesting to me is what EXP's questioning allows us to explore in terms of gender, sexualities, transnational references, and expanded imaginaries. And I just want to say in closing, I love this project. I hope we get to discuss it a lot. It's so effing interesting.
Thank you, Maud. I wrote a lot of things on your mic. Oh, sorry. Which one should we talk about first?
I don't know. Pick one. Overwhelming.
Pick and
Do
jump.
you have a preference?
Should we do it like in order?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
can
the
do
first question, it's really funny because so Koki was sitting right here, like right in front of me, and I was telling him that like you're making me nervous. You should like be out of my sight.
Cookie's the member of EXP.
So,
Yes.
you know, I'm talking about the subjects like right there. You know, it's, awkward.
But we're not objectifying our
True.
Such
true.
a socially awkward practice.
Although at the beginning of the project, we had this conversation that we were worried that we're not objectifying them enough. We had that phase because you wrote it on the
Yeah.
you
Yeah, so in the beginning we realized that three of us are Asian females, and we're just like
everything's okay even if we do something that's problematic.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
some people might see it as a disadvantage, and we're like, we should use this disadvantage as an advantage. So in the very beginning, it was like, how could we sexually harass them, like in a way that like it's okay, and we
just
Not
just
okay,
like
but just
the right
perceived
amount,
okay.
you know. So
Verbally,
it'll be
verbally,
like
verbally.
interesting and would like
Oh no. What's happening?
Ooh, let me.
because we're filming. Because we're filming the
Yeah, so
project,
because we're filming the process, so we will like discuss before the boys come in, and then we're like what should we say and like what should we do, and then we're trying to like say something that we thought is inappropriate, which is like, oh, you should lose weight, like, or something like just justifying their body image in a way. And then later on, we even did a survey. Like we gave them like a questionnaire, and then asked them like, "Do you feel being objectified?"
Yeah.
And then like none of them feel like
no,
objectified.
one,
Only one,
yeah.
only one. But
Yeah.
but it was like really early on in the project, and that was actually still during the audition process. So now some of the members are not in the group anymore. But it was just like funny to see that like we thought that we were harassing them, but it was like being steriled, like because we're our roles, but it might just because I don't know, like a lot of them are from like they're models, they're actors, maybe they're just like facing this kind of comments like every day. So yeah, that was the backstory about that comment.
I don't know where I was gonna go with this, but
Did I lead the conversation to the weird place?
It's already weird.
Okay, I want to bounce off that. I want to ask. Can I ask you guys a question?
yeah.
So, and Karin mentioned fan fiction before too. So whether it's boys' love or fan fiction, or but women narrativizing men in cute / sexy scenarios. It is all over fan culture. So it interests me that in some ways you're enacting this wonderfully generative fangirl thing, and in other ways you're doing a gender flip, and you're enacting directors of a creative management team. So do you want to say anything about, agree, disagree, and these different roles, this sort of narrativizing fangirls and the directors, and yes, men as players, let's say, in between?
At the beginning, definitely we were aware of that, and we first just started. We just shot them, but we realized that it was important for us to film ourselves, so we had that shift at some point. But we're way past that phase right now. Like, he calls me mom, and
Every day.
yeah, and it's just because now the relationship definitely changed. But at the beginning, we were very aware of that relationship and the power dynamic, and we really try to assert more. But about the fan fiction, you guys want to talk about that part?
Yeah, I think you mentioned.
Oh, well, I feel like that part is more of a personal observation, like years of being fangirls in Asia, like in Taiwan, and my friends. Like a lot of my friends are into, we call it, like in Taiwan, we call it 同人志. It's just like fan fiction that involves male and male relationships. I really say it's gay culture because it's totally different things. And my conclusion is that for like in Asia, because homosexual is a subject that really got discussed, and like usually you don't really know what it's like to be gay, or you don't really know like homosexual, they're just like people, like they, for a lot of people, like homosexuals is like they're like somewhere far away,
not in public discourse.
Yeah, thank you. And so for fangirls, if you insert a female character with your idol, like having a relationship or even having sex, is dirty because porn is dirty. But if it's male and male sex, it seems just divine because they're all idols. They're all like over the rainbows, yeah. So I feel like in that way, it's not like, oh, they don't get sexually charged when they're reading fan fiction or anything like that, but it just doesn't feel as dirty. It's not like you're watching porn because they're not porn.
Yeah, and I want to talk about our EXP's fan fiction because we have fan fiction now. It's crazy. Yeah, and so there's Hunter and Koki. Koki's here.
Koki.
We have a Koki couple. And yeah, it was like I felt so accomplished when I found that. But
we have a Google Drive folder all for it.
Yeah. But we, as many of you know, we have a lot of anti-fans, and I haven't really organized my thoughts on this, but we found out that, well, it's easy to see, but they use this sexual text to terrorize us. So they use it as a weapon. Yeah. And I mean, it's a online community, so you can't really tell if they're female or male, but it is really shocking how, if we assume that they're young female fans of K-pop and us, anti-fans, that they use this as a weapon to like embarrass EXP, or they, and that was like a very mind-blowing thing for me. Mm-hmm. But we do have to study more on this, because it's really overwhelming phenomenon that we're experiencing. But yeah.
I don't know if this is so much about fan fiction or more about aegyo, but recently in researching something sort of separate, or even in watching, I think I just enjoy watching aegyo like a lot.
You want to explain aegyo?
Oh, no.
Oh.
You should explain.
Or aegyo. Cute. Yeah, cute.
Or so I don't know if we can give like a little bit.
Aegyo means like, in Korean, means like acting cute.
Yeah. So we used to lead these things called cuteness workshops, and I think just personally I find it really interesting, and I couldn't really understand what it was that drew me to it. And recently I think it just occurred to me that there's the non-oppressive act of two males interacting, because oftentimes here two males interacting, for me, particularly being Asian and female in America, is like very oppressive. If it is not deemed as homosexual, it's usually like brawls or fighting, something about anger, or that they're a threat to me. But to see them interacting in a not gay but friendly or fraternity, which ironically fraternity is so threatening to me, just college or whatever, I don't know. So viewing those acts of friendly and playful, to use a term from Maud's writing. The interaction of play is really interesting and dynamic, and so charming, so lovable. And I think in understanding and even just developing a relationship with EXP on a personal level, you get to know so much more about the people and how they express themselves through this, not because it's sexually charged or business, but just I think it's a kind of charm that you cannot just replicate it. You have to sort of grow into it or observe it in different ways, and it manifests in such an interesting manner.
Yeah, that reminds me, like early on you mentioned that there are some elements that in K-pop boy band is like really important. One of them is like brotherhood. So in a way that is, as them being like acting cute, it's almost like, oh, because they're good friends, they're brothers, so they can like play with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like erotic but not sexual, if that makes sense.
I guess.
To put it succinctly, I think it's interesting that it's this fraternity that we don't see in America often. Oftentimes it's more about charm and less about, to me, fraternity. That is a fraternity, but in America, fraternity is very represented by heterosexual males, and their interactions are often, about like, I could use a lot of obscene words here. Did you bang that whatever last night? As opposed to like just more about play and charm and interaction.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like, it's bromance. Okay, so bromance in Hollywood movies is like the Las Vegas road trip movie, right? And bromance in K-pop boy bands, whether it is overtly sexualized in terms of online fiction or not, on stage, it's usually enacted through cuteness and with an undercurrent of androgyny. And cuteness is really interesting as enacted because it's both innocent, like playful, childlike, sibling play, and also, it's a big industry, right? It's heavily eroticized, but without sort of under wraps, like, not without being overt. It's implicitly eroticized. I'm talking about the big industry of K-pop, girl bands and boy bands, but in your context, specifically boy bands. So then you, by growing this band without Korean members in New York, it's so great the way it highlights these different issues. So it makes us viewers think about maybe the Hollywood road trip, more violent male bonding bromance, as opposed to this enacted cuteness, which might be expected of a K-pop boy band, but then we see it here and we think, oh, they're acting cute, they're doing that. It's like we think about it more. So I love that it's both provocative and like deeply engaging. Like I'm enjoying the cuteness, and then I'm thinking, oh, it's you three and your actors are manufacturing it.
Mm-hmm. And also it's a performance for the camera, and we create this artificial world on Instagram or on social media or on YouTube. And when I decided to do this project, 방탄소년단 BTS, their YouTube channel was a big inspiration, like big textbook for me. And when you see, there's so many videos that they upload, and when you see the videos, it's almost like it reminded me of Lord of the Flies. It's because there's no female figure, it's all men, all boys, and they would like edit it that way, so there's no women, no female, and it's like they're living in a artificial container, and they would act the cuteness amongst themselves. And that was really interesting how they have this understanding, and the actors and the people who film. So they would, and it's all for camera. And yeah, that was a big
State of nature.
yes.
Unfortunately, we
Culture.
are out of time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let's give another round of applause to our panelists.